Hello and welcome to another ClueCon Weekly. Joining me in the studio this time around, we've got Andreas Granig. How are you doing today, Andreas?
Hi, David. Yeah, I'm doing very well. Thanks for the invitation.
And thank you for joining us. We're grateful to have you along. Whereabouts are you coming to us from today, Andreas?
I'm currently in Vienna, Austria.
That sounds like a very nice place to be. What's the temperature like right now?
It's getting cold, like 15 degrees. Yeah, so it's getting autumn.
That does sound a little bit chilly. And Andreas, I know that we're going to talk about SIP testing, and I'm looking forward to that. But before we get to that, can you let the ClueCon weekly viewers know how you got into the world of telephony, IP, and VoIP, and all of that kind of stuff, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm working in the VoIP business for 20 years now. So I started in 2000 at a vendor doing free-to-free development. So we did gatekeepers and services for that. So it was prior to SIP, actually.
And, yeah, those were the good old days, weren't they? Port 1720 and all of that.
Exactly. No, I don't have too good memories of these protocols, so I just tried to forget it. Yeah. Anyways, I mean, I think in 2004 I joined a very small ISP in Austria who just started in the labs to use the SIP Express router and tried to launch the first internet telephony service in Austria. And yeah, they hired me basically to build their whole product from the lab to some live environment. And that was actually quite a ride because we got up to 100,000 users in like 2 years. And yeah, it was very challenging, but it was extremely interesting working with end customers, working with the business customers, trying to scale, a product from nothing. Yes, SIP Express router was running on some old server along with web servers and stuff like that, up to a real cluster. And the thing is that after this company got acquired, I really wanted to do that again, but that time properly, So what I decided to do with a friend of mine is that we found a company, Sipwise, where we created basically an open source soft switch as a product and sold it to telcos. And that was in 2007. And that has kept me busy.
Andreas, if I can just jump in and ask a quick question. You said you created it as an open source project, if you like, and then sold it to telcos. So what were you actually selling them support around it, or were you selling them the project? So how did that work? The sort of the way you did that?
No, the idea was really to create a product. Yeah, so we really wanted to create a product and not being a consultancy business. So we took open source components, created our own around that, and on top of that, published a lot of them as open source as well. But took it, bundle it, and sell it as an appliance to a telco. Because actually, what we found is that telcos back then, at least, and I think it's still to a certain extent true, didn't really care about the product being open source or not, right? They really wanted just to have a cost-effective, high-performance soft switch with all the features they need. And the open source part was more for us like a tool to reduce costs, on one side. On the other side, also to get development support from the community, kind of similar to what Digium with Asterisk did back then, right? So there was the core components being open source, and then there were the products, the commercial products on top of that. And this is what we established, and it actually was working very well. And we got acquired by Alcatel-Lucent Enterprise in 2018. And yeah, and that was basically then the idea there. Yeah.
Yeah, a quick question. And when is it? Which year did you start Sipwise?
When?
Yeah.
We started in 2007. Yeah, 2007 in May. So Yeah, exactly. And
So
we did it for 11 years until we sold the company. And I kept working there for another 2 years, which was very interesting. Alcatel was this, or is still this big PBX vendor. And what we try to do is, build the bridge between these commercial PBX and a soft switch, creating kind of like a big hosted PBX with all the bells and whistles and, the remote controls and all their new services they were building on top of that. And that kept me busy for quite a while. And this year though, I really had the impression that I needed a break. So I really wanted to, step back, take a long personal break, and find something else, because I really needed to do something else. I did this for just too long.
Just before we move on from that, Andreas, what was the cultural fit like? When you came from Sipwise, an open source based kind of company, into that big corporate machine that is Alcatel-Lucent. How did that part go?
It actually wasn't too difficult, because we were very closely working with a group who was kind of like which was a startup within the company. So they created a completely new product from scratch, which was called Rainbow. And they had a team of like 50 people, and we were a team of around 50 people. So it was actually a pretty good fit. So it wasn't really difficult in a way. So it worked quite well.
Oh, really glad to hear that. That's good. Anyway, sorry, do continue. You got to a part where you're telling us you're taking a break because you needed a break and you needed something different.
I really wanted to take a really long break. Like months or a year. I just had no idea what to do. And so I quit. And the break took like 3 weeks. And then I got quite uneasy again and wanted to do something. And the thing is that I always wanted to do a proper SIP testing product. I just wanted to buy a good product back then when I was at Sipwise, because we always had the need to do proper SIP testing. It should be easy, it should be performant, it should be scalable, but there just wasn't something around. And this is where I back in the years started a couple of times to do something by myself, just to have the tool in the company, and it just didn't work out, right? So I really took this as a challenge and said, okay, let's have a look at that, because now I have the time. And I started to experiment a bit with different tools, getting familiar with some source code. But then, it was difficult because of COVID and my kids, they were at home. There wasn't really a quiet place. And so I couldn't just focus enough. And also my kids, they're like 6 and 8, right? And they always wanted to play computer. And I was like, you can't play computer games. If you want to play a lot of computer games, or just computer games a lot, then you have to develop your computer games, because then it's not playing anymore, it's testing.
And learning.
For them, most of it was testing, testing the game. And it was really a fun experience, right? Sitting with the kids and letting them paint the assets, and we built some kind of like a shooter game, like a steroids, where the COVID viruses came from the top, and you had to shoot like injection needles up there, and the things like the viruses exploded, and it was great for the kids, right? They loved the exploding, and they painted the assets and everything, and they tested a lot. And but now, since school started again, I really got the time now and got the motivation again to do something. And I actually started to look into some numbers and how could I set this thing up, what should it look like, and what's out there in the market, would it work, what's the feedback from the people, and started to sit down and code a bit. And this is something that I would like to show you today, what I did, what I'm planning to do in the future, and how that is going to look like.
Yeah, we'd love to see that. So let's get that up on the screen. And there we are. So yeah, please go ahead with your slideshow. Looking forward to it, Andreas.
All right. So what I would like to show you today is SIP in the cloud. Yeah? And the overall idea is to create a SIP performance testing as a service. It doesn't exist publicly yet, yeah. So it's more like a teaser. But I regularly show screenshots on Twitter. So if you want to follow the progress, just follow me there, or drop me an email if you have questions. And I'm going to dive a little bit in there of how it's looking like, how it's working, why I'm doing it, how it's going to work in the future. Great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about test tools in general, what's out there, problems with them, why I think they're not really suitable. I'm going to deep dive a bit into SIP, how I'm going to bring that to the cloud, how it currently looks like, and what I'm planning in the future.
Okay.
So there are test tools out there, but the problem is, at least what I found over the years, they are good in a way, but they are bad. Bad in terms of usability, mainly. Yeah? And if you look at what's there, then you will find a big range of open source tools. I think Lorenzo Miniero did a great presentation 3 years ago at Kamailio World, outlining some of them, also going a bit into SIP, which is basically the most famous one, which I'm going to focus a bit more today. There's also Seagull, there's Sipwise that the ClueCon audience knows quite well, I think. There's JMeter. So there are a couple of open source tools that people could use. I have used all of them in one way or the other. I tried to build some tooling around it, but it just never really worked, right? And I even got to the point where I started to look into proprietary software, which is not that usual for me, actually. But in the end, I really was using proprietary tools. I think everybody who was working like 10, 15 years ago in the VoIP market knows the famous Abacus. Yeah? I tried to even acquire or buy an Abacus device, and I just couldn't get one. Yeah? I don't know if they still exist. Yeah? But I tried to get one on eBay to no avail. It was a mess. There is Star Trinity, which is from a Russian guy, which is really working quite well. But it runs on Windows. You need your own hardware and stuff like that. And then there are the really big ones which provide you, some protocol testing devices that you can put into your lab. But that's also not exactly what I wanted, right? What I wanted to have is a really low touch and easily accessible tool that you could use. So that's basically an overview of what I believe it's out there. It's surely not complete. Yeah. So if you have other tools that you're using, then I would love to hear from that.
I guess that list of tools, Andreas, covers a few different angles. For instance, Sipwise, as we know, is sort of penetration testing and that kind of thing. Whereas I'm guessing some of the other tools were hitting things from different angles. Right,
exactly. I mean, in the end, testing is always a matter of how you look at it, right? On one hand, you want to do performance testing to just see, okay, where are the limits of your system? On the other hand, you want to do functional testing to see, okay, if I develop something new, if I change the code or whatever, then I just want to verify if it still works or not, or if I broke something. So it really depends on how you look at it. And also from a penetration testing side, it's, as you said, a different angle. Anyways, there are the tools out there, but it's really, for me, it was always really difficult to choose them and to use them, right? Why that is so is if you look at, for instance, CP, it's a really old. I mean, it's a well-established tool. It's there since 2003. I think everybody knows it, or most of the people know it in the telco space. So it's a command line tool with a cursorless user interface. So it's text-based. it's highly performant. It's really amazing how it works. I was, as I said, back in the years, I was trying to kind of implement my own test tool with different SIP stacks, just in a different way than CP. I always found CP to be way too complex for the average user, because it has like, I show you, it's like 150 option flags. I just counted them. It's it's amazing.
It's a lot to learn.
Exactly. And the thing is, if you're not using them day to day, then I don't know, in 2 months when you need it again, you just have forgotten it, and you just need to go back and look, and it doesn't behave as you want, and you need to dig very deep. And apart from that, also, you have the XML scenario files where you can you have total control of your call flows, which is good in a way, but which is also bad, because if you do the slightest thing wrong, then your test is broken, and you're not testing the right things then. So as I said, I really tried to implement it from scratch in a different way, and I tried to use PSIP and ExoSIP and PGSIP as SIP stacks, and I just never met the performance of SIP. So I really gave up. And this is actually why I'm now, for this project, I'm using SIP as not exactly as it is, but in a slightly modified version. But it's just great. It's a really great tool.
Yeah, so many years of your experience sort of coming to bear.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is, everybody knows this screenshot from the CP SourceForge page. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, it's even Windows Vista still. And this is how it looks like, right? So what it provides you is a very good overview of what's going on in the tests, like which messages are being sent, what are the responses, what's your current matrix, roughly, like how many have failed calls are there, and so on. And on the right side, you can see an example of such a scenario. So it's really, it's plain SIP with some variables that you can use and some logic that you can use. But in the end, it's you have to really sit down and do the low-level SIP protocol construction in order to make it work. And it takes, for me, I'm working now for 16 years with SIP, and I just do it wrong all the time. So that's the problem with SIP. And most of the scenarios that you find out there on the internet, they are broken as well for some reason. So they might work with one particular system, but not with others. So I had a really hard time getting all of that to work. So the thing is, my plan therefore was really to make, or the mission is really to make CP accessible. Making a tool, providing a tool to users where they can just go to a website, even with their mobile devices, put in like their target host, upload some CSV file that they need for defining the users, just press a button and go. And in the end, that's also one of the things that is very, let's say, difficult with these tools, is how to interpret the results. So you're getting a couple of CSV files, and now you need to put it into Excel, and you can do, you can read everything in what you want in these kind of statistics. So what I really want is a report in real time, and in the end, where you can go to your manager and say, look, I was, testing this system. It's coming from a vendor, whatever, and it can do this amount of calls, and it can do it with this kind of call quality, and it's, I don't know, has this kind of bandwidth in the end, flowing in the background. So a very simple and easy and colorful, if you want, report that you get on the table once your test is done.
Great idea, Andreas.
Yeah, I really wanted to have these kind of things in the past, and since it didn't exist, I really want to make this work. And the other thing is making it scalable, right? Because if you just, CP is very performant. You can do thousands of concurrent calls or thousands of call attempts per second even. But in the end, if you start using media, then everything comes down to CPU performance, and you then need to launch like a whole fleet of instances, and then getting all the statistics together and correlate them and present them is going to be very, very hard. So this is what I'm focusing on. And for me personally, as it really needs to, it needs to make fun. The bonus that I expect and require from this whole project is that I learn a bunch of new and fancy things. Because, in the past 15 years, I was working a lot with these appliances. And, I feel like that I'm losing a bit of touch with all the modern technologies. I'm still implementing all these things in Perl like it's 1998 or something. While everybody else is using JavaScript now, and I just can't do it. I don't have the time to do it. And if I do this prototyping now,
it sounds like a win-win, Andreas, bringing something that's going to make a tool easier to use and easier to see the results of, and some personal objectives being achieved as well. Excellent.
Exactly. So just to give you a quick glimpse into that, what I mean by, for instance, making it accessible is, this is an actual screenshot of the current status of how you would basically define or start a test. So what you get is a couple of fields with the most important CP parameters that you can use, translated to human readable form. So you say, okay, I want to do a basic course. I have a target definition, host, outbound proxy, protocols, and so on. I have a list of calling and call party credentials, right? And then I have performance parameters. So how many requests per second do I want to see, do I want to send? How many concurrent calls do I want to reach? How long should the course be like? Or if I do registrations, what's the expiration rate? And then also some termination conditions to say, okay, I want to stop after an hour because it's enough, or I want to stop once, in that case, 50,000 calls in total are reached. So that it just doesn't run forever. So that's what I expect from such a tool to provide me as an interface. There will be, of course, in the future, feature creep is always an issue, and I'm 100% sure that it's not going to stop with that, and people will come up with, I want to do this and that, but I just want to make sure that it stays in the same way that an average VoIP engineer can go there, can start it, and maybe we'll do some advanced features in some collapsed forms.
That's right. You've got to start somewhere, and that goal of accessibility is a great goal.
All right. The other thing is making it scalable, and learning a bunch of new things. I have been working with AWS for years, but the only thing I really knew is these EC2 compute instances where I ran VMs, and that's about it. And boy, I had no idea what those guys provide. It's amazing. So you get basically tools for every kind of use case or problem that you have, right? So in my particular case, I was thinking of, I need to start tests. I need to scale them. So I need to have potentially lots of instances. So I was thinking of, running Docker instances, but I need to orchestrate them. And I have no clue about Kubernetes. And I'm not in the current state yet to learn it. So I needed to find something more similar, more simple. And so I was looking into AWS Fargate, which is really cool. I think it's a bit pricey depending on what you do. But in the end, what you do is you just, you define a Docker container that you can just upload there. And then you say, okay, I want to launch that many instances with that kind of configuration, with that kind of performance in a way. And they just go. That's very, very easy to remote control also via APIs and scripts. And that's one part. And the other part is, if you look at, for instance, different test scenarios, like a basic core, there is not only, the basic core, like one CP scenario involved, right? I just remember very lively back then I had a ton of terminal windows open running, a lot of CPs, one doing registrations, the other one doing the cores, the third one, answering the cores and sending them back. So you need to orchestrate these kind of things, and it needs to go step by step. And there is a fantastic service there, which is, I think, very underrated, which is Step Functions. By the way, I'm not affiliated with AWS. I'm just very excited of what exists there. It's like a treasure trove, right? and yeah, this is why I really like it. So you can say, for instance, okay, I'm starting a container, a task. I let it run for a while, for instance, to register the core party instances. Then you can define a trigger and say, okay, and from that point on, now when every user is registered, I can start another container and can start my course running there, and then I can define, error conditions and stuff like that. So basically, it works in my case. In one scenario, it really works kind of like this. Yeah. So you can control it completely by the API. But go there and just double check on your web interface where you say, okay, I want to start somewhere, then I need to run a calling container that has intermediate states or triggers that you can do, where you say, okay, I'm now finished with registering, so I'm now listening for incoming calls. And at that point, you start another container to run, all the caller tests. And in the end, you want to bring all of that together and check if that actually worked. And that makes it very easy also to scale it. You just say, okay, I want to, I don't know, start 10 or 20 or 100 caller containers, or just one, depending on what you want to do. So very exciting for me, at least. All right. So, I mean, if you wanted to implement all of this from scratch, in like a one-man show, as I am at the moment, it would be just impossible. Yeah. So that's why I'm pretty excited about it. Now, where I am at the moment with this, the thing is, I have two signaling scenarios working at the moment, which is registrations, which is the most simple one, and I just started with that. And the other one, like a more complex one, is basic cores with prior registration. There's currently no media involved, but I'm working on that as the next step. And all of that comes down to real-time statistics. So you get an overview how the tests are currently going. And if you remember the screenshot of sipp that I was showing earlier, then a couple of things will be very familiar, like this course scenarios area, for instance, where you basically have the same information. Yeah, you see how many, in that case, registrations have been sent, which kind of replies do you get, how many retransmits you had, how many timeouts. So you get a very good overview, like you sit in front of your console of how the tests actually run. Yeah, and on top of that,
great
you get all the colorful charts that I really like, because I'm really a visual guy. I really need to look at the graphs and not so much at the numbers. But since both of them are very important, they are provided as well. So this is how it's currently looking like. Yeah, so you get a lot of data into a browser. I'm not that good in JavaScript development, so it's a bit clumsy. But anyways, it works. It's a good start. And the same actually goes for a real core, right? So if you have ever done a core test with sipp, then you will definitely recognize this. So you start, with some invites, you're getting an authentication request back. You do the invite again, you get a ringing, the call is established, and you pause for the number of seconds or minutes actually that you want the call ping up, and then you tear it down. And this is for the calling party. And as you can see, of course, you need a called party as well, which responds to these kind of things. Depending on the scenario, if you test asterisk voicemail, then you don't need that, right? But if you're doing just normal, basically simulating two phones, and that's how.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what it is today. And next steps, it won't get boring, of course. Yeah. So I think the most important part really is to launch the tool, to see how people are picking it up, if it is really of interest to people or not. And then from there, we will go with PDF reports, audio video support, which is, I think, one of the most important features, because this is what a lot of testing services lack, and this is also what makes sipp very difficult to run proper media tests. You also want to have, like, in a proper test scenario. You want to have the core quality. You want to have bandwidth stats. This is particularly important, for instance, when back in Sipwise we had these discussions. Okay, we were implementing, for instance, transcoding, yeah? And we just wanted to find out, okay, what bandwidth do we actually need if you run like 100 concurrent cores with this or that codec? What happens if you start transcoding from, I don't know, Opus to G711 or vice versa? What does that mean in terms of, you know, performance, CPU? Is one codec combination better than the other? And it's very, very difficult to you know, figure this out. And that should be one of the, you know, most native things in this tool to really be able to, you know, to test these kind of things. And then, of course, having something like custom scenarios where people come up with their own CP scenarios, so they will be able to build their own tests. Because, you know, it really depends on, as we said in the very beginning, on the angle that you look at. Yeah? So some people really want to, you know, do more like presence testing, just registrations, cores, whatever. And of course, you just can't cater to all of that with like a general purpose tool. So it's very important to be able to, you know, upload your own custom CP tests. And the other thing is, particularly if you target, you know, enterprise customers, that all of that needs to be available via APIs, yeah? Because I envision that tool to be used in continuous integration, continuous deployment scenarios where I don't know, you know, you have your Jenkins environment or some GitHub jobs, and every time you commit something or once per night, you just want to double check that everything is still up, or everything works as expected, or if due to some particular change, you know, the performance dropped or a call failed or whatever. And doing this manually is a pain. As we all know, testing is always a pain if you have to do it manually, and therefore there will be a big focus on the automation part.
That's a very interesting aspect of it, Andreas. And because you've had that in mind from the word go, is your own GUI and the other things you're building like effectively customers of the API in terms of architecture?
Right. All right. So that's basically my big preview into what I'm spending my time on. So
that's amazing.
It's really interesting.
Very ambitious set of goals. But just before we leave the slideshow, Andreas, can you just pop it back onto the very first slide that got your email address? Oh, I see you've got your Twitter handle down at the bottom, actually. Okay, that's probably good enough, just if people want to get hold of you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do live coding on Twitch. It would be just too embarrassing. But I regularly publish, you know, screenshots in the status on Twitter. So if you want to keep track of what's going on with this project, then just subscribe or follow me there.
That's great. Okay, let's pop us back. And the other thing I wanted to mention, Andreas, is of course, Sipwise was a regular participant in Kamailio World. I used to see you guys there pretty much every year. Were you able to participate this year in the online version?
No, actually not. I'm not that much of a fan of online conferences, to be honest. They just slip by me. Kamailio World, like the on-premise conference, was basically the only one I regularly attended, and I loved it, and I really missed it this year because, you know, seeing all the people face to face from the community, it's always very, very, very interesting from a discussions point of view. I really hope that this whole thing goes away soon, and that we can, start meeting people again.
Yes, there is something very special. I mean, we're very excited in SignalWire with our own platform for events and things, and you know, it's a substitute, but that's what it is. It's a substitute, and actually seeing people face to face is excellent stuff. Okay, well, thank you very much, Andreas, for giving of your time and telling us about what you're doing. It looks a very, very worthwhile project, and I would imagine you got people hanging on the edge of their seats waiting for this to become generally available, or at least in beta, so that they can give it a try.
Right, I need brave and fearless people for my beta tests. So if you just raise your hands, that would be great.
That's great. Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. And as you said, I hope I get to see you at a live event before too long. But for now, Andreas, thank you very much for sharing your plans. Oh, just one quick question. Is there a website yet for your new project?
No, there's no website yet. There's not even a project name yet. But yeah, it will be revealed in like 4 weeks, something like that. Yeah. So
Okay,
somewhere in November is going to be the surprise.
Something for everybody to look forward to. Okay, for now, Andreas, thank you very much. And see you soon. All the best to you. Take care.